Hi, this is Rachel, and I'm coming to you for this assignment on the worship autobiography. Pardon me, I've got some notes on the side, so it kind of looks like I'm not looking at the camera, but um, I'm coming to you from the piano seat in our sanctuary where I serve as the pastor of worship at First Baptist Church in Ashland, Virginia. And we are a 160-year-old congregation that's learning to worship with 5 generations. And it's been pretty incredible. I am 38, and I was raised in the church. My parents became Christians a few years before I was born, but the beautiful story of my legacy is really found in my grandparents. They led worship, and they still sing and play guitar in the Assemblies of God and Church of God circles and networks. And I really learned about my faith and my family through them as a child. I grew up playing underneath the communion table in this little Baptist church that my parents attended after they accepted Christ, while my dad was playing bass for the quartet or singing in the quartet or in the choir. And so I literally cannot remember a time where the rhythm of Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday evening were not a part of our weekly family rhythms. And it shaped me in some really deep and beautiful and not so beautiful ways. I formed some habits and had some great mentors, but also had some mentors who just were not healthy themselves. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s that I really, I went through a huge transition in my own life and began to understand how God would work those things out. So I, grew up in Wytheville, Virginia, which is a small county in the bottom left corner of Virginia if you're looking at the map. So one more county and you see North Carolina and Tennessee and West Virginia, and an amazing, beautiful place to grow up in. The Blue Ridge Mountains are absolutely fantastic. I grew up playing on the river and hiking a ton and just having a really great time as a child. My great-grandparents had a working farm, and I really consider myself lucky to have been raised and had a simple life and upbringing. I started taking voice lessons at Radford University as a junior in high school, and then my choir teacher encouraged me to continue to pursue this craft, and I was a first-generation college student. So at the age of 17, I headed to Radford University on a partial music scholarship, thought I wanted to be a music teacher. Finally got to my third year and first semester of student teaching, and I was assigned a middle school class. I came home crying every day. I hated it, but I had no idea how God would redeem that space for me because I really wanted to finish my music degree. So I did. I finished in vocal performance and worked professionally in some theaters and for Paramount Parks for a couple of years. I got married young at the age of 21 and married a high school sweetheart, family friend. We were married for 13 years and our marriage ended. It was difficult, and it was the very fabric of everything that gave me identity. And God used that experience in my life to reform me and to remind me that I am his beloved daughter. And I went as far to have it tattooed on the inside of my wrist because that journey really catapulted me, if you will, into the new version of who God created me to be. And I'm ever grateful. I also went through an intense year of discipleship through an organization called Uptick, and then in turn began to disciple artists and musicians and makers in this new life that God had given me after divorce. A couple years later, I met an amazing man who's also a pastor, and we neither one of us were playing games. We'd both been through a lot in our stories, in our journey, and we decided to get married 8 months after we met, and then we just had our daughter. So we're celebrating 3 years of marriage and a new baby girl, and I'm here. A little bit about my work. I'd served for almost 9 years in the church when I lived up in Massachusetts in my first marriage, and just had a hard ending, not because of me, but just because of other circumstances, and because my first marriage was ending. And I just kind of swore off ministry altogether. I came back to Virginia and worked in the nonprofit for 5.5 years, and I loved it. And then slowly but surely, God called me back to full-time ministry, and I was connected with the group of people here at First Baptist. So that's how I got here. One of the quotes that speaks to me from our reading so far is from Weber. It's in the conclusion. Weber says, "My call is to help us recover these common roots of faith and worship, for these traditions have been received from the apostles and handed down in the church for centuries. So if you want a definition of ancient future worship, it is this: the common tradition of the church's worship in word, table, and song, practiced faithfully and communicated clearly in every context of the world." And if I could say that there was one way that I feel called to this work and called to get to do what I do, called to study and become more theologically sound and more theologically rich in my thinking and in my planning and my praying as a pastor, it would be rooted in those words. So that's me. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm an open book, and I want my experiences and the pain and difficulty that I've experienced to help others to draw closer to God and to learn from the story that He's writing within each of us. Thanks.